Ever feel like you're just bracing yourself against the wind? You know, like life's throwing one of those surprise storms your way and you're just trying to hold on tight.
Yeah, yeah, I know that feeling.
But what if those storms, those tough moments, those are actually where we find out what we're really made of?
Interesting.
That's what we're diving into today. Finding that strength inside ourselves. We're going to look at some powerful metaphors today, all about weathering those metaphorical storms and coming out even stronger.
And you know what's interesting to me about the metaphors that we're going to unpack today? They don't just tell us to tough it out, to just try to get through. It's more than that. It's like, picture a lighthouse, standing tall, shining its light even when the wind's howling, the waves are crashing all around. That image, that's our resilience. It's that strength inside all of us. It's shining through even when things get tough.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. So you're saying it's not just about getting through the hard times. It's about recognizing that even while we're in those struggles, we have this inner strength, this light that's already there.
Exactly. We just have to remember it's there. And that's not always easy, right? I mean, when you're stressed out, when things are just chaotic, it's hard to see the bigger picture,
Right, of course, yeah.
let alone our own inner strength.
Yeah.
But this, what we're talking about today, this is a good reminder. Now, speaking of tapping into things, I understand you're quite the chess enthusiast, am I right?
Oh, you are well informed.
So I'm curious, do you think that strategic thinking, like in chess, do you think that translates to finding your own inner strength when you need it in life?
You know, that's a really interesting comparison. And actually, yeah. I mean, chess has definitely trained me to stay calm when things get a little intense, to like analyze what's happening and look for those
Yeah.
unexpected moves.
Right.
Sometimes that move that seems like it's out of left field, that's the best one. And I think the same goes for life. You don't always have to go with the obvious answer. But here's where this text gets really interesting to me. After all that storm imagery, right, the wind and the waves, it shifts gears.
Yeah?
And it goes to this place of incredible stillness.
Okay.
It's almost like finding this calm space, this quiet space within yourself after the storm has passed.
It's really something, isn't it? It's not magic, but it really can feel that way. It makes me think of that saying, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. And I think that's so true. This stillness, this quiet, it's like that's where we can finally hear our own inner voice, where we can really tune in and be honest with ourselves and say, okay, what did I learn from that storm? What are my strengths? And how did those strengths get me through it?
And I love how you use the word "here" there, because it's not just about, thinking about our strengths or like making a list. It's really about listening to that inner voice. And speaking of listening, are there any practices that you use personally that help you tap into that stillness?
Oh, for me, I got to tell you, it's all about getting lost in a good book. Something about diving into a story. It lets me tune out all the noise of the world for a little bit and just be present.
Right.
And this is key, I think everyone finds their own version of stillness differently.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's all about figuring out what works for you.
And that feeling, that sense of peace, of calm, of clarity, it seems like that's what leads us into the last part of what we're looking at today, this idea of brighter horizons. I know. It's a phrase you hear a lot. But there's something about the imagery here, the way it's written. Like the sun's breaking through the clouds, the path ahead of you is clear, it's bright.
And that's exactly it, isn't it? That hopeful image, that's what gives us the energy to keep going. It's a reminder that even after the toughest storm, there's always a path forward. It's about having the courage to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even if we can't see the entire journey ahead of us.
And it's not always about these big life-altering displays of courage, is it?
No, not at all. Sometimes the bravest, most courageous thing we can do is just that next small step. I know you love learning new things, right?
I do, yeah.
So maybe this week your brighter horizon is you finally signing up for that online cooking class you've been thinking about, right? I mean, on the surface, it's small, but it's still moving you forward.
I love that example. It's those small, everyday choices, those little steps we take that make the biggest difference over time. So as we start to wrap up here, what really resonated with you today from everything we've talked about?
For me, it goes back to that idea of finding strength in stillness. That quiet, that peace, it allows us to hear ourselves more clearly. Makes me think of that quote, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. So maybe this week, just try one thing to tune out the noise, even just for a few minutes. Really listen to that inner voice and, see what you discover.
Great advice to end on. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.